So one question that I get asked all the time is, what are my favorite read aloud picture books? And I've been putting this video off for a long time because it's so hard for me to narrow it down to just a few books. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that in almost every single one of my videos, I'll say, this is another one of my favorites, or this is one of my favorite books, at least once during the video, if not more than once. So for someone who loves picture books as much as I do, it's really hard for me to pick my favorites. Now, I picked a few out, but know that I have so many more favorites, I'll probably have to do at least another version of this video in the coming months to share even more of my favorites. But let's get started with some of my favorites, and I'll explain why I really like to read them aloud. One of my first favorites is How to Read a Story. Now, I love sharing this book in the classroom with students of all ages because I feel like it breaks down something that seems so natural and something that we do all the time into little steps and makes us really step back and think about it. So we all know how to read a story. You pick up a book, you read it. But I love how this breaks down like the true joys of reading a book. Sometimes we get caught up in reading a book because we have to and not because we want to. So I love how this breaks it into 10 different steps about finding a buddy to read with, finding a comfortable spot, really using the different voices as you read aloud, and then at the end, finding another book to read. Love sharing this with students and really helping them understand how wonderful reading is and really seeing the true joy in reading a book. Another one of my favorites, and this one's going to come up again next week. Next week I'm sharing some of my favorite summer read alouds, but this one is There Might Be Lobsters. And I'll talk more about what this story is about next week, and I'm pretty sure I've shared it on here before as well. But I love how the story has a young girl and a dog, and the dog is the one who's really nervous. The girl is carefree, but I love how nervous the dog is and how sweet the dog is. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's about the beach. I love the beach. And maybe being part of the beach and how much fun you have there. Maybe that's what makes it one of my favorites. But I really enjoy reading this one aloud and how it talks about overcoming your fears and really finding the fun on the other side of those fears. This is another one of my favorite read alouds. Another favorite of mine, I know I've shared before, The Invisible Boy. And I'm gonna be honest and say at least the first or second time I read it, I definitely cried because there is a sad part to this story, and about how the young boy is not noticed. And maybe because I was that shy, well-behaved kid when growing up, and I felt like in elementary school, I was one of those kids that could slip under the radar like this young boy did. And I really connected with him in this story. And I think it's important for teachers and for other students to see that we need to make sure everyone is included, that nobody slips under the radar, that we should include all of those people, even if they're shy or even if they're quiet. So I love sharing this one because it really builds that empathy with adults and with kids. And I love how you really feel how this young boy is feeling in this story. Another one of my favorite read alouds is a nonfiction book, and I will be honest and say I'm not a huge fan of nonfiction, but I think they're so important, and that using nonfiction read alouds really helps students connect to social studies and science concepts, and that picture books can be used across all content areas. And I really think that they should be, because it helps students understand the concepts that you're teaching that much more. This one is called Balloons Over Broadway, and it's talking about the balloons that were created for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And it's so interesting to see what went into we see this parade every year, And it's so interesting to see the background and how they came about and how they were created way back before they were even a part of the parade. And the bright colors and the collage illustrations in this book make it so interesting and engaging for students, and give them something to look forward to. So especially if you read it in November, I have a free read aloud lesson to go along with this one that you can use in your classroom to read in the month of November. And then there's like a scavenger hunt to go along with it so students can watch the parade and check off things that they see while they're watching the parade. But I don't know if it's because the parade is something that I watch every year with my family. It's one of our traditions on Thanksgiving, and just finding out that background information about it. This is a great one. I really enjoy reading this one aloud. Another one of my favorites is called 10 Ways to Hear Snow. And I live in New England. We get a lot of snow. It gets cold in the winter. I don't like the snow. I'm not a fan of it, but I like that this book helps me appreciate it. It talks about the different sounds that you hear when it's snowing. And I think if you've never experienced a snowstorm, you might not understand all of these ways, but it's a great way to learn more about it. And if you've experienced a snowstorm, you'll really understand all of the different things that she talks about in this book, about how it gets like super quiet when the snow falls and you can't hear anything. Like there's that silence right after the snowstorm ends. Or you hear the crunching of people walking in the snow, or the snowplow pushing the snow to the side, and all the different things. This story kind of makes me step back and think about it, and even though I'm not a fan, it helps me appreciate it more and how to see it through a child's eyes, because snow is amazing for a child. It's like the best day of the year is the first snowstorm. And it helps me see that snowstorm through a child's eyes and how much wonder and excitement they have during that time. So 10 Ways to Hear Snow is another one of my favorite read alouds. This next one is an older one, but a good one. Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. And I like this one at the beginning of the year because in this story, Lily is so excited about her brand new purse, and her teacher is so patient with her, and he tells her just to put it aside, you'll have a chance to share it later. And Lily just can't be patient. She's just so excited, and I feel like that really exemplifies how a child feels when they have that brand new thing, that brand new toy. They're just bursting with excitement and can't contain it. And she shares it when she's not supposed to, and so the teacher puts it on his desk and says, you can come and get it later. And she gets so mad and so angry at him. And again, it really captures a student, a child, and maybe misunderstanding the situation, because then we learn later that the teacher writes her this note about how we made a mistake today, but tomorrow's gonna be a better day. And she thinks that the teacher initially hates her and is out to get her, but then she sees this note and she realizes, no, he was really thinking about me. He was really caring about me. I made the mistake. And she kind of backpedals and is worried that he's not going to like her anymore because she was so upset with him. But he has so much patience with her, and it's like, it's okay. You made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Today's going to be a better day. And they celebrate and they have fun. And again, it just captures that essence of a child who is excited, but then gets really upset when something doesn't go their way. And then also tells the story of a wonderful teacher who understands this child, that they're so excited and then maybe they did make a mistake, and that's okay. So another one of my favorite read alouds. Another favorite read aloud that I have, that I don't actually have the book with me, but this one is called All Are Welcome. And I think it's a great story to read, especially at the beginning of the year when we want to make sure that all students feel welcome in our classroom. It doesn't matter where they came from or what they look like or who they are, that they are all welcome, not only in our classroom, but in our school, and that we are there to celebrate them and to talk about how wonderful they are, and that we are happy that they are there, and that we want to learn so much more, that we're excited to learn so much more about them as the year goes on. And again, I have a free read aloud lesson to go along with that you can use at the beginning of the school year to really make all your students feel welcome in your classroom. This next book, I will have to admit, was not one of my favorites when I first saw it. Before I read it, I will say that I judged the book by the cover, and I had no interest in it. And I put it off, and I had the book, but I didn't read it for so long, even though it was part of my classroom library. And then once I finally picked it up, it became one of my favorites. This one is called Tops and Bottoms, and it's a little tricky to read because you read it like this instead of opening it like a normal book, and so that does make it a little tricky for a read aloud. But it's a great story about a bear who's really lazy and how a rabbit kind of takes advantage of that and tricks him, and how they learn to work together after bear has fallen for many of the rabbit's tricks. But this was a fun read aloud that your students will really get into, and they will be rooting for Rabbit the whole way and also warning Bear about the ways that he is about to get tricked. So I think this is a really, I don't know if it was the cover that put me off of this story, but like I said, it became one of my favorites, and I think that you should share it with your class. And now I saved my very favorite book for last, and I know I've shared it multiple times on this channel, but one of my absolute favorite books is called Strictly No Elephants. And in this story, the young boy is so excited to go to pet club, and he's gonna bring his pet elephant. And once he gets there, there's a sign that says Strictly No Elephants, and he's so sad. And he was so much looking forward to this, and he's excluded from this group for not really any particular reason. And so he meets up with a young girl who she kind of assumes that she's going to be excluded because she has a pet skunk. And they decide to form a pet club together where everyone is invited. No matter who you are, no matter what pet you have, you're all invited to come to this club. And I like that they've taken how, even though they were excluded for something, they welcomed everyone. They changed it and made it so that everyone felt welcome, that no one felt the way that they felt. And I think this will inspire your students to include everyone and to make sure that the things that they are doing are inclusive, and that they need to make sure that nobody gets left out. But this is such a heartfelt book about friendship and about inclusion that I think is important to share with kids, and it is one of my favorites. And I will leave all of these books and the resources that I mentioned linked in the description box down below so that you can grab them. And I want to know what your absolute favorite read aloud is. If you had to pick only one book, what would be your favorite read aloud? Leave a comment down below and I'll let you know some more of my favorites. And like I said, there will probably have to be a part 2 of this video to share more of my favorite books, because there's just too many. There's too many wonderful picture books out there for me to narrow it down just to one video. And make sure you stay tuned for next week, because since we are in the middle of July, I thought it would be a great time to share some summer picture books that you can read aloud, either to your own kids or to your students, or you can save the list for next year to share at the end of the year. Have a great week.